the mikveh. That was really important. I'm so glad someone remembered to record it. Thank you, whoever did that. Reimagining how to use the ritual bath of Jewish tradition, the mikveh. She's now created Beloved, which is doing what we have always prayed for, which is something, an organization to help spiritual innovators with some of the back end challenges of fiscal sponsorship and accounting and all the stuff that we all need to do, but no one ever really is excited about. Sarah said, you know what? I wasn't excited about it too, but now I'm gonna be. And so she created Beloved and runs various cohorts and services to serve spiritual innovators, both Jewish and beyond. And we're just thrilled by all the work that she's doing. And so I'm very excited to hear, Sarah, how do you define spiritual innovation?
Well, thank you for asking me, Casper. I was wondering, Casper, have you ever thought about being a TV host? And Angie, have you
Oh,
ever thought about being a spiritual leader? It just seems like the two of you are really good at those two things. So I'm just wondering, just like throwing it out there, if you had ever thought about that. I am
if there,
delighted to be here. I know that I have 5 minutes, and I'm going to teach you a text that is helps me understand what spiritual innovation is. So I'm going to dive right in. This is a text that is from the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish sacred texts, and is shared with other monotheistic religions. And it is called the Song of Songs, or in Hebrew, Shir HaShirim. And the Song of Songs can be understood as a ancient love. It is an ancient love poem. There is no other way to look at it. And some people think it is an ancient love poem between two humans, someone who is male presenting and someone who is female presenting. I say this because their body parts are very clearly described in this Song of Songs. So that is a possibility that the Song of Songs is between two people. Another possibility is that the Song of Songs is an allegory for the love that God feels for God's people. In this case, in this book, the people Israel, which is the ancient people Israel. Um, Now, another way of thinking about the Song of Songs, and the way I like to think about the Song of Songs, is that God wrote me a love poem. And this is a love poem from God to me about how much God wants me to be with God and how desirable and beautiful and magical I am. And so, with that like potential frame in mind, I'd like to share a little bit about what God is asking me, and in turn, each of us personally. God says, come, my beloved, let's go out into the open. It's in your chat. Let's hang out by those beautiful bushes over there, and let's go early to the vineyards, and let's see if a vine has flowered, if its blossoms have opened. Here is very clearly a sexual metaphor. It doesn't take a genius to see that there's some things that are opening and blossoming. And let's see if the pomegranates are in bloom. And there, in that spot, in that vineyard, I'm going to give my love to you, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to imagine it. Okay, so I'm setting the scene for you, okay? And then I know we're going to get to spiritual innovation, I promise. Then then the next text, and again, and this is Song of Songs, chapter 7, verses like 12 through 14. Then we read this. The mandrakes yield their fragrance. That is a specific kind of fruit that apparently looks like a pear-shaped woman's body. The mandrakes yield their fruit. At our doors are all choice fruits. Now, choice in this case means like the most excellent, delicious fruits, both freshly picked fruits. And in Hebrew, the word is just new. Yashan just means, oh no, sorry. Chadash, which is just new. It just means you could say in modern Hebrew, just some new stuff, some chadash stuff, and long stored, which in Hebrew is just some old stuff. But if you were hearing that, you wouldn't want to translate fruit as some old stuff. You want to know that it's been stored beautifully. So God is holding at our doors right in front, right in front of where we're like being intimate with one another. There's a door. And in front of the door are all these fruits. And some of them are old and some of them are new. And God wants us to know, my beloved, I have stored all of these fruits just for you. And so, spiritual innovation to me, that like is kind of like the same as spiritual oldness, right? It's like to me, it's like there is all this old, beautiful wisdom from our lineages and our traditions that is just stored just for us. We can imagine
Mm,
stored just for us to explore and learn and grow from. And there's all this newness out there. There's all this beautiful new imaginings and growing and sweetness that we have yet to taste. That is also here at our doors waiting for us. And God is saying, have both of them. Like that's
mm,
what I want you to eat. And so I guess the last thing I'll say is just that I imagine that there are people in front of each of you, each 76 of us, who are hungry, and you can say to them, like, you can say this to them, like, I see that you are hungry, and when I say hungry, I mean like starving for meaning and purpose and hope and possibility and context and belonging and love, whatever they're hungry for. Like we as spiritual innovators can say, we have long stored things for you, and we have
mm.
something new just for you to taste.
Yes, Sarah. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're
Oh my
welcome.
goodness me.
Thanks for asking.
Okay, I have one quick question for you before we move to
Yeah.
Brandon, which is what is not a spiritual innovation, right? If in this beautiful metaphor or image, God is giving us both the new and the old, like, is there anything that isn't a spiritual innovation?
Okay, I just want to be really clear that this can work if you don't believe in God, because like you, we can just use love instead of God, right? Because, and that's what's so awesome about having the Song of Songs metaphor is like
Mm,
you can just say, I believe in love, or I believe in this one other human who I love. So I just want to, when you said it, Casper, it made me realize like I just want to be clear that you can use any of those three possibilities: God and Israel, God and or two humans, or God and you. Take it, run with it. Obviously, I'm playing fast and loose with this. So, what I would say, I knew you were going to ask this question, Casper, and I hate to say it, but um, I I think that we are at liberty to play. And one of the things that was really interesting to me when you mentioned the first organization I created, which is welcoming people into an ancient ritual called mikvah, which is immersing in water. I was criticized a lot that said like, this is watering down religion, right? Like you're watering it down or you're diluting it, which I was always like, yes, water metaphors for things I'm doing in water. Or you're dumbing it down, or this isn't Judaism, right? All this stuff, and I was like, in fact, this is the most ancient thing I could be doing. There's nothing
mm,
innovative about it, right?
mm,
Like, so it's kind of like, I just feel like the definitions are so fluid, to use another water
mm,
metaphor, that, like, to me, what I was doing, reimagining an ancient ritual bath, to me felt ancient, and to some people felt too new. And
mm.
so I'm just like, I offer that as an example, not really as an answer, but just to say it really, ooh, I love that, Tony. But just to say, like, it doesn't bother me whether it's spiritual innovation or not. It can be like you can use the long stored fruits and just imagine them for the people sitting right in front of you. And then immediately it becomes spiritual innovation because it's for the people right in front of you. So that's
I
my
love it.
non-answer answer to you.
Beautiful. Well, I invite everyone, little snaps, a little sparkle fingers. Show your appreciation in the chat for the wonderful Rabbi Sara Luria. Thank you for being with us, Sarah. Such a joy. Such a joy. Well, as they like to say, from a practitioner to a scholar, let's welcome Brandon Vaidyanathan into the conversation too, because Brandon is really at the forefront of thinking about how do academics conceptualize spiritual innovation? Is it even a thing? And maybe Brandon, you can share a little bit how you think about what is spiritual innovation and what's some of the conversation among scholars, because not everyone agrees that it is even a thing. So I'd love to hear your reflections as well.
Yeah, thanks, Casper and Angie and Sarah. Wow, that was so delightful. Thank you for with that metaphor of long stored fruits. I mean, that's something that I will meditate on for a while. Um, yeah, this is it's a really, I would say it's a new concept and a new field. There isn't really kind of a research field on spiritual innovation, and it is a contested concept for a number of reasons. I mean, the word innovation used to be pejorative. It used to be verboten, and in some traditions it still is. It carries a lot of baggage with it. There's a lot of Western capitalist baggage. So, and in some traditions, what the word innovation is strongly associated with a distortion of core belief, of core doctrine. And so for all of those reasons, it becomes, unfortunately, something that's very palatable to American or Western sensibilities, but maybe for some other faith communities or traditions or cultures, it is seen as quite suspect. And it's interesting to sort of look at the history of the term and how it went from being this object of censure. I mean, I'm thinking in the 1500s there was a king of England, I think Edward VI, who issued a proclamation against those that doeth innovate. It was punishable by, perhaps death, right? So, because it was a challenge of the status quo of the king of God, etc. And now it's become a criterion of worth. I mean, anything in order to be worthwhile has to be innovative. And so it's really fascinating just how in the last 100 years it's become this sort of sacred object. It's become spiritual in some sense. Even the concept innovation comes with a lot of normative, positive connotations. So the sense in which I would define it is I want to be careful of necessarily associating innovation with normative, sort of positive connotations. It could be something that has negative consequences as well. So I would sort of use a more analytic definition just as a scholar and talk about the two components. One is what is spiritual and what is innovation, right? And so by spiritual, most scholars who study sociology of religion or of spirituality would look at something like a desire for a deep connection or a deeper connection to self, others, nature, and or a higher power, right? And it doesn't have to be all of them. It could be one of them. It could be more of them. But there is this idea of deeper, I think, that's important, which there is some sort of qualitative judgment of worth, where we assume certain things are noble and vile, higher and lower, deeper and shallower. And so you can have a shallow connection to somebody or a deep connection to somebody. And the things we consider spiritual have to do with that level of depth. And then there's innovation, and what do we mean by it? And usually it means some kind of novelty, something new. But novelty is not enough. We often mean useful for solving some problem. So it's not just enough to be inventive, but it has to sort of solve some problem and then to diffuse somewhat widely, right? It has to be accepted. And so there's a sense in which um, there's some need, some unmet need for a group of people that is being solved, and that group of people has to recognize this innovation as somehow meeting that need, right? So if we put all those things together, I would say spiritual innovation is some kind of significant change, and it could be like maybe not something necessarily new. It could be something old, right? Like I like this idea of long stored fruit. It could be something that is brought into something different, something that was not in this context, but is being brought in, maybe from the past, maybe from something that was preserved, maybe it is completely new, right? But so some significant change in a belief, practice, ritual, artifact, structure, right? So some kind of change at that level that is recognized by some people, some group of people as meeting the spiritual need, opening a fresh pathway to that deeper connection to oneself or to the mystery or to others or to nature, right? And that then starts to diffuse and gets picked up. And so until it gets picked up and diffuses, I don't know if I would call it an innovation. And it's I think it's a useful category. There are some colleagues of mine who would disagree and don't think that the term innovation belongs in the study of religion or spirituality. They think it's important to preserve the binary between tradition and innovation because that is seen as opposition, and that opposition is important theoretically. But I think this idea of freshness is really critical. Like, how is it that religions adapt? How do they evolve?
Mm.
How do spiritual traditions emerge and change? Innovation is a useful lens to see all that. It helps us see something. It shines a light. Even if it's coming from the world of technology or business or whatever, it's helping shine a light on that kind of newness. And then it also helps us recognize the new networks of people that come out of an innovation and that are responsible for diffusing it or also giving access to it, right? How is it that some practice becomes not just the prerogative of some select community, but then can widely, be accessed by people elsewhere, even in other other traditions. So I think it's helpful for those reasons, even though we have to be careful, I think, of some of the negative baggage, and maybe sometimes innovations backfire. Maybe it's a bit consumerist that we get caught up in the chasing after one fad after another. And we got to be aware of power dynamics, right? I think we shouldn't be too naive that all spiritual things are positive. But if we keep all that in mind, I think it can be really helpful.
I love it. Brandon, thank you so much. And thank you for doing this work in your arena of the academy, because I think having those conversations in the theoretical realm is really helpful for us practitioners to kind of see ourselves in it and be like, does that feel right? Does this feel right? And even to kind of clarify our own thinking of some of the ethical questions, as you were pointing to, like, well, how do I want to be wary, maybe the influence of capitalism or American culture, and what responsibilities do I have to think about lineage and think about how the old and the new connect. So I'm just delighted that you're going to be continuing this work in the months to come, and to keep this conversation going between practitioners and scholars and those of us who sit somewhere in between. I know you both have meetings to get to, so we're going to say thank you and goodbye to Sarah and Brandon. But hopefully this will be a perfect starting point for further conversation. So thank you again, Brandon. Thank you, Sarah. And really, really grateful for you both. We'll see you very soon.
Wonderful. And thank you for the important work you do.
You bet. Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Wonderful. Well, friends, with that incredible meal laid out, the old and the fresh fruit, as it were, let me share a few words just from our perspective at Sacred Design Lab. If you haven't yet had a chance to peruse this page on the Spiritual Innovation platform, I really encourage you to, because it lays out not only we have an essay from Brandon, and a number of others that we link to on this page, but it gives you a chance to delve deeper into these questions about how different practitioners from different geographies and scholars too are defining this idea of spiritual innovation. But we at Sacred Design Lab landed on this definition. I'm going to put it in the chat and we can break it down together. So we think of spiritual innovation as novel ways to address spiritual longings that contribute to the flourishing of individuals, communities, and the ecosystems of which they're a part. So that newness, that freshness is really core to our definition, as you can see, novel ways to address spiritual longings. And so too, those spiritual longings that Sarah was talking about, right? That sense that people want to be connected. The language we use for that longing is our 3 Bs of belonging, becoming, and beyond. So how do I belong in the world, both through the relationships in this moment, but also in terms of lineage, right? How do I belong to a peoplehood or to a place? How do I become the person that I want to be? How do I grow into the kind of person with the values and the behaviors of someone who I want to become? And then how am I part of something beyond myself, right? That might be theological language. It might be more of a cosmological language, a cosmic language, belonging to the universe, right? Or being part of something beyond myself. But so that the spiritual longings for us are about the 3 Bs of belonging, becoming, and beyond. So novel ways to address those kind of yearnings, those spiritual longings that contribute. And this is the crucial part for us where we did make a normative choice. So this is different from how Brandon was talking about it, that contribute to the flourishing of individuals, communities, and ecosystems. So you could look at Christian nationalism in this moment in American politics and say, wow, there's a lot of spiritual innovation happening there. And I think that's a totally valid standpoint to look at that through the lens of spiritual innovation. But what we're saying is that the kind of spiritual innovation that we want to support has that positive, has that normative outcome. So it's not being used as a tool of hate and division, but that it helps for the flourishing of individuals, communities, and ecosystems. So that's a particular choice that we've made in thinking about how we want to define spiritual innovation, and therefore what kind of spiritual innovation we want to support and profile on a platform like the spiritualinnovation.org platform, for example. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of the core elements of the definition we've used. But I want to invite Angie to just add a few more pieces to the puzzle there in giving that definition.
Thank you, Casper. Yeah, and I think you were just highlighting something really important as far as our definition at Sacred Design Lab, which is that we have come to it in many ways out of the desire to operationalize it. insofar as Sacred Design Lab is committed to supporting spiritual innovators, right? So, what does that mean and what kind of support can we offer? And so in that vein, I just wanted to offer two other sort of layers or nuances to the definition that we use and how it plays out in terms of the work that we do, at least. And we're curious for you to discuss these kinds of questions in a bit with each other. But one question that comes up a lot is, how does spiritual innovation relate to religion? And Sarah and Brandon both spoke to this. But in terms of the work that we do and the way that we understand it at Sacred Design Lab, and I'm going to paste another link here in the chat where we talk more about this on the platform, but we feel that spiritual innovation occurs across the spectrum, that spiritual innovation happens within religious traditions, within wisdom traditions, that it happens outside of wisdom traditions, and that it can also occur in this sort of edge space. As you think about the spiritual innovators that have touched your life, or maybe you are one of them, many of these folks they have a foot inside of a tradition, and they're also stretching what that tradition can mean and working outside of it, serving people outside of it, right? So we would say it happens all across that spectrum. And then another perhaps controversial perspective, but this again is just how we understand who are we really trying to support at Sacred Design Lab, is what is the difference between a spiritual innovator and a spiritually grounded leader, a spiritually grounded social entrepreneur, a spiritually grounded activist, right? And we are huge fans of spiritually grounded leaders of all kinds. But specifically, when we're talking about spiritual innovators, we're talking about folks who are engaged with, as Casper described, these spiritual longings. And so sometimes we use the example of, say, someone who's a climate activist and who's doing climate activism from a space of spiritual groundedness, which we're like, yes. But what we would say is, like, in terms of a spiritual innovator, the distinction would be that someone who is serving the souls of the climate activists as their work, right? So that distinction between taking the fruits of spirit and taking social action versus the people who are essentially, one way to think about it, if this language resonates with you, is kind of doing the work of ministry in the broadest possible sense of that word, right? That they're caring for the spiritual lives of other people directly, as at least a good portion of their work. So that just helps us in terms of the resources that we develop and feature to to make choices about how to do that kind of support. And again, as Casper said, there are a lot more perspectives about this on the platform, including really addressing some of that dissonance that Brandon identified and some of the critiques of innovation as language. So do take a read of all of that. I will pass it back to you, Casper, and we can see. I see. Yeah. We have a question, and I'm wondering if you could put the question in the chats, and I've been working in the chat to try to respond to things. Oh, it was said way too fast. Okay, let me write it out for you. Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Absolutely, and we'll have more chance for reflection right now. So this was perfectly timed. Thank you so much, Ange, for sharing that. And remember that these are just our perspectives on spiritual innovation. There are many more. So have a look at the other essays, and we're really not looking to have you accept exactly what we're proposing. What we want to do is to help you think about what you mean when you think about spiritual innovation, how you contextualize your own work within that. So what we're going to do now is just take a couple of minutes for some journaling, if you're willing, and think about a couple of questions. And I'll put those here in the chat as well as saying them out loud so you have a reference for them. But to think through these three questions. And I find it very helpful to kind of write with pen and paper. If you want to do it digitally, that's just fine too. But here are the questions we're going to invite you to think about before we break out into some conversation together. So what does spiritual innovation mean to you? How would you define it? And it could be a kind of poetic definition in the way that Rabbi Sara offered. It could be more of a technical definition in the way that Brandon offered. But what does spiritual innovation mean to you? And then maybe to make that real, what's an example of a spiritual innovation that's been important in your life? Maybe this is a project you're working on. Maybe it's something that you've participated in, or maybe it's seen something that's inspired you from a distance. But what's an example of spiritual innovation? And is there something from Sarah and Brandon that resonated? Maybe something that sharpened your own understanding, that idea of depth that Brandon pointed to, or that idea of novelty, something that's fresh. Maybe it's that idea of that Sarah was talking about of old and new fruits. And you can even think about, right, is the innovation in the content of of the work or the experience, or is it the way in which it's being shared, right? Moving something from in-person to digital. So try and think of if there's something that resonated from what you heard from them, or from the definition that we offered also, or the distinctions that Angie offered between a spiritually grounded social entrepreneur or an activist versus someone who's deliberately trying to meet the spiritual needs that they're encountering in the world. So we'll take about 3-4 minutes here to spend some time with these questions. I really encourage you to do write them down as to kind of get your brain active, and we'll come back together in just a few minutes. All right. And I invite you back into this group experience. And Ange, if you're willing to just share the slides as we prep for our small groups, just a reminder, the purpose of these small groups is really an opportunity both for you to meet other folks who are practitioners of spiritual innovation or thinking about these kind of questions, but they're really learning spaces. So come into these small groups with the approach to learn, to reflect, to connect with each other. If you can join with your camera on, that's a real gift, just to everyone present, but we understand if it's not possible. And if you'd prefer not to participate in the small groups, that's fine. Just stay with me in the main room and we'll hang out until everyone comes back after about 18-20 minutes or so. Um, we invite you to make sure that the stories stay, so you can, be conscious that no one is going to share this story that you're sharing outside the world, but the lessons you can take with you. So please keep confidential any particular personal things that people share, and we'll make sure there's no recording bots or note taking that's happening in your small group. So you can speak with as much comfort as you have. It's not a share or die situation, so only share what you want to. But the invitation is, as ever, if you're someone like me who likes to talk a lot, try leaning into listening more. And if you're someone who's maybe a little less likely to go first, we invite you to go first, see how that feels. But take up some space and share what you're wanting to share. Remember that all of these shares are really a gift to each other. It's so helpful to learn from someone else's perspective or someone else's thinking. So contribute as much as you're willing and able. We'll have about 20 minutes for these breakouts. There'll be about 3 to 5 people in each small group. And the invitation question that we want to share with you is literally, what does spiritual innovation mean to you? And what does it not mean? That's often a really helpful way of landing on where is the difference. What does spiritual innovation mean to you? And what does it not mean? If you have any tech questions, just hang back. I'll be here to help you, but I'll open these breakout rooms now, and I hope you have a wonderful conversation. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Thanks, friends. Okay, the groups are open. Give me a shout if you have any challenges here. And I'm gonna move. Great. Let me know if you have any tech challenges. Angie, I hope you'll just monitor the chat as I'm making sure we have enough people in each room. Doing so far, so good. Okay, Ange, you want to join your group? You've got 2 folks waiting. Thank you so
Sure
much.
thing.
I combined your group, Ange, so there's a few more people in there. Great. And for those of you who are staying behind here, we can just chill out and wait for everyone to come back. Or if you have a question, I'm happy to chat. So whatever is most helpful to you. Hi, Sokfa. Did you want to join a breakout group? Forgive me, you're muted. You can, if it's easier to use the chat, that's fine too.
Hi, hi. Sorry.
Hey,
I was joining with my phone and there's a bit of a network issue.
I'm sorry. How,
Yeah, please, you can assign me to a group.
sure. Or we can also talk if you prefer.
Okay, let's talk.
Where are you dialing in from, Sokfa?
I'm joining from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm so grateful that you're here. I've always wanted to go to Addis. I've never been. The closest I've been is Nairobi, but that's far away.
Oh, no, you should definitely come to Addis. It's such a lovely place.
Amazing. Amazing. What drew you to this
Yeah.
conversation? Why does it resonate for you?
Well, I found the project really amazing because so I'm a religious studies scholar, sociology of religion, but I work primarily in peace building.
Wow.
So I work in as a practicing mediator, but also as a peace building scholar. So
Wow.
I'm actually in Ethiopia for to complete my fellowship for the Social Science Research Council.
Amazing.
And yeah, so I follow a lot of Templeton Foundation projects, and that's how I, I learned about. I'm very interested in spirituality, religion, and
Yes.
I found your idea of spiritual innovation extremely exciting. So, yeah,
Wow. Do
that's,
you see a
uh,
lot of spiritual practices being used in peace building work in Ethiopia?
yeah. So I've only been in Ethiopia for about 4 months. I've worked mostly in South Africa. I live in South Africa permanently.
Ah,
I was
amazing.
born in Nigeria. Um, but I've worked across Southern Africa and Eastern Africa, and I do see that a lot of peace building work is grounded in spiritual practices and spiritual beliefs, even when they are not explicitly stated, they are always there in the background. Um, and I see that a lot, especially in East Africa. It's very common, and also in West Africa, you find that a lot.
Amazing. I want to ask you more, but I
Yeah.
see Estelle is back. Estelle, were you in a breakout room? Can I help you get back to where you were? Room two. Okay, great. I'm sending you to room two. All right. So if I'm about to go to South Africa in a few weeks. I'll be in Cape Town and
Oh,
Namibia.
oh,
Will you be back in South Africa later in February?
yeah. I'll be back in South Africa on the 30th of January, actually. I will be in
Amazing.
Pretoria.
Pretoria. That's too bad.
I live
That's
in
too
Pretoria.
bad.
But if you're able to, yeah, so you're not going to visit Pretoria, you could say hello to our center at the University of Pretoria.
That's so cool. I will do it next time for sure.
Oh,
living in New York in the winter, I try to escape to some sunshine. Um, but this is
uh,
but this is
how long are
fascinating.
you
So
going to be in Cape Town?
I will be there. I will be there 2 weeks, and I will travel with some friends to Namibia as
Oh,
well. So we'll be taking a road trip. But last year I
okay.
was in Zululand, just north of Durban, and also in the Drakensberg Mountains, which was so beautiful.
Oh,
So next year I have to go to Pretoria.
oh, nice.
But it's so interesting that you
Oh, wow,
say.
that's amazing. Yeah.
It's so interesting to think about
Yeah,
peace building.
definitely. But should we should talk when you are in South Africa?
Let's do that. Let's do that for sure. I'll put I'll put my email address here in the chat. Um, I would love to connect. That would be so fun.
Okay.
Um, and especially because I'm curious. I know in Burkina Faso, is it there's the fumble talk? There's like the use of kind of
Mm,
facilitated community dialogue and peace building, and also using spiritual
yeah.
practices. I know there's a lot of interesting work happening that I would love to learn more about. So I'm eager to read your research.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to talk more as well. And I really enjoy listening to this topic of innovation. And I've always try to think, sometimes I find Ladarak's way of thinking, like the moral imagination. I like to
Yes,
connect moral imagination, spiritual character, and all of that with peace building. In my personal
yes.
reflection, you won't see that in my research, but in my personal reflection. Um, but yeah, so it's really amazing, and it would be really lovely to talk some more and you know,
Wonderful. I would love that.
your-
And
yourself,
I,
are you also a researcher or primarily a practitioner?
I'm primarily a practitioner. People like you, real scholars, I bow down. I have no patience to do the hard work of the PhD. So yes, very more a practitioner, but I feel very lucky that we get to work with a lot of academics and be a sort of a bridge between the research and the practice. So a lot of what we do is kind of translating insights from scholarship for practitioners, and also we hope to translate some interesting stories from
Mm,
practitioners to scholars. So part of the work
okay.
over the next few years will be to write case studies about kind of successful spiritual innovations that scholars
Mm,
might want to learn more about. And hopefully to
yeah.
stimulate more interest and more research amongst in the academy. Um,
Mm,
and then also to share insights from academic research that could be useful for practitioners. If
mm,
practitioners are creating a community and thinking about music or food, like what do we know from research that
mm,
helps practitioners apply those insights about how to host a meal together in the most effective way, or how to integrate music into community experiences that builds connection most effectively, or those kind of questions. So
wow.
and obviously our bias is very American because we're surrounded by American examples and stories. So I'm very interested to learn more
Mm,
from your research and from the case studies that you're writing. So Amy, I don't know if you were here at the
mm.
beginning of the event, but Amy is a new researcher on our team. So I'd love to connect you both. She's a
Okay.
professor of sociology here at a CUNY at the university in New York
All
City.
right.
And so she's helping our kind of
Mm.
connection with academic researchers.
Oh, that's amazing. I'd love to connect with her. I would love to connect with her. That's really
And
amazing.
Sokfa, would you tell me what is the name of
Yeah.
the center or the name of the university that you're connected to? Is it the University of Pretoria?
Yes, University of Pretoria. There is a center, the Center for Mediation in Africa. It's in the political science department. That's my center. Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. I look forward to reading more about it. This is so cool. So how much longer will you be
Thank you. Thank
in
you.
Ethiopia for?
I'll send you an email.
Perfect.
I'll be here to the end of January. Yeah. I'll leave on the 30th of January and go back to Pretoria for a few months.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I'm going to bring back all the groups together in a moment. So it was so great to meet you. I'm thrilled that you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Perfect.
Same here. See you. Thank Thank you so
See
much.
you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I will close the rooms and bring everybody back. Just a moment. Okay. Welcome back, friends. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm sorry if you felt like, "Whew, what a great conversation. I want more." Well, the good news is you can, I hope, find each other in the Spiritual Innovator directory. I've just put the
Amen.
link there. If you haven't yet created a little profile in there, please do. And if you want to reach out to people, please do. It's really the joy of this project is all the folks who are connecting with each other to have these kind of conversations. I was delighted to connect with Sogfa John, who's a researcher at the University of Pretoria and is currently in Addis Ababa exploring spiritual innovation and peace building. So we had a great little conversation. I hope yours was stimulating as well. And so what I want to invite you to do is in the chat, just share what did you learn from your conversation? What was something that sparkled in your group? What did you learn from your conversation? I might invite a few of you, if you're particularly interested, to share. For the whole group, I'll welcome you to do that. And I see Mentor is ready to go. Let's go, Mentor. What did you learn from your conversation?
Hey, we learned that we need more time. It was wonderful, wonderful with a group. I think where we ended up is spiritual innovation. It's almost like the tools to access that deeper dimension. It is more the
Mm,
even at the end the language we used was technologies. And I like that too. So instead of innovating spirit, we felt that spirit is pretty good. Just our access to it, is where we're innovating. So maybe that's kind of sums up some of the insights there.
I love that. I love that. This idea that there is something that's enduring, but it's our way in which we connect to it. That's where the innovations happen. So maybe new practices or yeah, new technologies, as you were saying, new ways in which we connect with something that's eternal. Um, Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Mentor. I love it. I
Thank
love
you.
it. Beautiful. I see Heidi is ready to jump in. Please, Heidi, join us.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone in my group spoke about the religious trauma and
Mm,
harm that has taken place and how that creates a lot of apprehension for people to step into spiritual
yeah.
practices of any kind and the deeper, meaningful relationships we long for. And spiritual innovation creates a potpourri, a variety of
Mm.
ways to support people in healing. And I really valued that all three of the people I was paired with are spiritual directors. I'm not, but it was really wonderful.
That sounds like a very wise group, Heidi. I like I love that. And I think also really interesting, you're referencing something that Brandon mentioned as well, which is that the that some innovation might happen, especially when there is multiplicity. So when there is a difference, maybe different traditions or different, yeah, all sorts of difference. When they're in proximity, that can be kind of very fertile, either for making something safe in the way you were saying, right? That it doesn't feel dogmatic, perhaps, or it doesn't feel dangerous, but it also allows for newness. So I really love that, Heidi. Thank you so much. That's great. I see some more hands. Tony, yeah, what you got?
I was in a room with Myra, Daniel, and Manuela, and I will do my best to sort of summarize what we talked about. I think the biggest takeaways from the group was that spiritual innovation requires community building. And so the question that was raised was, how do we make religion better for those who are pursuing spirituality alone?
Mm,
And I thought that that was a very profound and sort of deep question. And Another piece of that was for those living in cultures where religion defines the culture in everyday life. So thinking about America, where you can sort of opt into religion, whereas,
mm.
in other cultures, you really can't. What does spiritual innovation look like, and how nuanced are the challenges in trying to be a spiritual innovator operating in those spaces? And then the last piece of that, which I thought was beautiful, was that it seems that maybe regardless of those challenges, the idea of divine encounters and framing the work around what that might look like for your community
Mm.
was sort of the path forward for different spiritual innovators to learn from each other, to inform each other's work, because ultimately the goal is to build community and care for souls.
Beautiful. I love that communal element. You'll see in a lot of the resources on spiritualinnovation.org, we really encourage people to connect with each other. It's partly the reason why we host these gatherings. I think partly because the work we all create is always better when we're learning from one another. But I think in part, some of our spiritual lives is you just can't do it alone. We need each other, right? We need to be in relationship to discover the fullness of depth. So I really appreciate that, Tony. Thank you so much. Excellent stuff. I see another hand from Holly. Hey, Holly, welcome.
Hi, thanks. I'll try to summarize some thread lines from our group. There was a strong component of embodiment that came forth
Mm,
for all four of us, and just talking about how a lot of innovation is experiential at heart, and this importance of if we're not in our own bodies, we might be enacting
mm,
trauma or some kind of top down on others. So this landing in
mm.
these bodies in this time and responding to the collective and allowing what's emergent to come. And at the same time, we all had a thread line of there's nothing really new. It's just as in the world of art, things are created from what is. And so we had, just this powerful sense of embodiment, and this happens in space and time, and it pulls on, some of the folks were talking about how it also pulls on at times more of something that's interreligious or interspiritual and focuses less perhaps on dogma. Now, this was only in our group, but this is what arose among the people that were speaking in this very embodied sense and also social justice context.
I like that a lot, Holly. This idea that if you're not conscious of where you're at, especially if you're leading others, right, the responsibility of being really present to your own experience and having to learn how to practice to do that. Um, Angie often will say, you can't really lead others where you haven't been yourself, and so that idea of having that responsibility, especially if you're leading others, to really be in touch with your own embodied experience in order to be to be a safe and responsible leader of others in their spiritual lives. That's great. Thank you. So great to hear all of these reflections. I'm gonna invite you. Thanks, Angie, for posting the directory again. This is a great place to keep in or find other spiritual innovators. It's not a forum, so there's no chat or kind of behind the login system. It's just a great place to post your whether it's your LinkedIn or your Instagram or your email address or a profile about your work. This is a great way to learn about other work that's happening and discover other spiritual innovators. So if you haven't already, please do fill that in. And I will invite Angie maybe just to come aboard to give us a closing practice before we close out. And I'll remind everyone we'll be hosting these convenings probably about every 6 weeks or so. I should have written this down, of course, which I didn't, but the next one is coming up somewhere in February.
I got
I
it.
will
I
give
got
you,
it.
great.
Hold on. Let me bring myself up there.
I think
Okay.
it's Thursday, the 26th of February.
That is correct. That is correct. At the same time. At least that is my understanding, Casper.
That's correct. Yeah. So 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll send out invitations and information about that. But please come again, invite anyone else who might be interested in these conversations. And don't wait until then to connect with each other. I see lots of people in the chat. We're sharing links, profiles, all of that kind of stuff. So we really hope that you'll continue to reach out. And we're always eager for your feedback. You'll see at the end of this call just a little pop-up on Zoom asking for your reflections. What could we have done better? What can we improve for next time? We're really eager to hear your thoughts and are so grateful for having you here. So Ange, I'll hand over to you to bring us to a close.
Thank you, Casper. This has been I had a really rich conversation with my group, and it's been really, really cool to see all of the wonderful insights you all have shared. So we will harvest the chat for anyone worried about that. And we will send out a post-event email that will have those links as well. And just another note on the directory that is also a place you can search. So if you are looking for connections, when you create your profile, you can put in some of your interest areas and location and things like that. And you can search for others who might share different affinities and things like that. So that is a last word on that front. Thank you all for making this such a vibrant community. We also thank the Templeton World Charity Foundation and the Fetzer Institute who make this possible for us to do. And please do take 1.5 minutes to fill in that Zoom survey that is going to come to you after we close. So before we do that, we would love to just end as we began, and I'll invite you into a moment of quiet to close out. And just taking this opportunity to allow everything that has emerged in the last hour plus to just land in you, feeling the newness that has arrived, all the new connections and ideas, and perhaps there were some sparks, perhaps there were some things that didn't land in a settled way that you want to explore more, or that there's something to work with there. So just allowing a moment, I'll give us a moment of quiet to let things kind of sift. And as you do that, I also invite you to just become present once more to the intention you may have set at the beginning of our time, and just to hold that and to perhaps ask an inner question of, is there anything that this intention is teaching me in this moment? And lastly, just taking a moment to feel the shared presence of everyone in this space, and everyone who has been here, and everyone who has come before us that has made way for us to be here, and giving thanks for that. And on your own time, I invite you back into the space. And if you'd like to, invite everyone to come off mute and we can just say goodbye to one another until the next.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Oh, it's been such a
you.
treat.
So nice to
Bye.
see you.
Take
Bye.
care,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
It was great.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Bye, folks. Thank you again. Thank you,
Bye,
Angie.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.